The Good Life. Thank you so much for coming. It's going to be talking about relationships and overcoming expectations.
You don't know, babe, when you hold me and kiss me slowly, it's the sweetest thing, and it won't change. If I had it my way, you would know that you are. You're the coffee that I need in the morning. You're the sunshine in the rain when it's pouring. Would you give yourself to me? Give it all. I just wanna see how beautiful you are. You know that I see it. I know you're a star. Where you go, I follow, no matter how far. If life is a movie, then you're the best
The talk that I'm giving today is actually about, it's about a relationship and a lot of the complications that happen. How many of you guys here have had the experience where there's somebody in your life who, and you'll see them at work, you'll see them at home, wherever, they're always complaining about the exact same thing going on in their life, or there's this recurring theme, and nobody else listens to them because they've kind of tuned them out, but because you're the person who actually gives them the time of day, you hear them, and they ask you for advice. And you give it to them, and they thank you for it, and they go back into the life, and then not too long after they come back, and they're complaining about the exact same thing. How many of you guys know someone like that? Or how many of you are that person? Yeah. Yeah, that was the exact same predicament that my wife and I found ourselves in not too long ago. She'd been struggling with a number of personal problems for an indiscriminate period of time, and I was the person who listened to her. I was her shoulder to cry on, and I bared with it for as long as I could, but at some point, she started asking me for help. And I answered the call. I gave her advice. I told her what I did, and she took it, came back with the same problems. And after a while of that, I started getting really frustrated. Really frustrated. So I went online, and I consulted help from the almighty Google. And I found different forums and articles and YouTube videos, people who went through this sort of thing. And they give advice that wasn't really helpful. They'd say things like, you guys just need to listen to each other. Listen to each other. Or one of you is going to have to compromise on something. One of you is going to have to sacrifice something. Compromise, it felt closer to the mark, but still an oversimplification of what was actually going on, not the real issue. And I wanted it to be precise. I wanted the answer to be accurate. I wanted it to be, specific. If you're going to a surgeon and you're saying that you're feeling problems and they notice a tumor, you want to hear exactly where it is. You don't want them to say, it's just this general area, we're just going to start cutting, trying to figure. You want them to know where it is. And that's what I wanted. So I kept on digging deeper. You see, the human body, in order to get us to do anything within our own best interest, in order to get us to do things, to incentivize us to get things done, it works through a set of incentive systems, much like at a job. For instance, if your boss wants you to get a task done, what do? They offer you a bonus. And what do? You get the task done, you get the bonus, everybody's happy. Now, in order for us to feel happy, there are chemicals that generate those feelings. The chemicals that are responsible for the feelings that we ascribe to happiness are endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Of course, the chemical that was pertinent to my relationship was oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is responsible for the feelings of safety, feelings of love, and trust, fulfillment. It's all the warm and fuzzies. And there are two ways to get it. The first way is through physical touch. The second way is through acts of human generosity. Our biological systems make us feel good when we do good to each other, when we're taken care of, and even just to see it happen, honestly. It feels good with these things because it's trying to incentivize us to do it. I wanted to create the ideal relationship with my wife. Not a perfect relationship, not a flawless one, but rather a safe space where both of us could feel naturally inclined to be ourselves. But we weren't there. Personality-wise, I was like an unstoppable force, and she was the immovable object. And we both wanted each other to change. And then I would say things like, if you loved me, you'd just change. And, in the heat of the moment, I actually believed that. All the pain and the rawness of it all, it was persuasive. But it wasn't true. She'd been struggling with a number of personal issues that had plagued her to the point of not being able to go outside for fear of being seen. And a constant state of anxiety that crippled her and haunted her. And she'd complain about not having the ideal body that she wanted, not being as attractive as she wanted to be. And I'd tell her, well, there are things we can do about that. We can go to the gym. We can go running outside. It's a pretty nice day. If you're too afraid to do it on your own, I'll do it with you. You don't have to do this on your own. We can do it together. I'll help you. And she'd say, no, I can't. You don't understand. I can't do that. I can't do that. People will see me. I can't. To which I was just like, well, you got to do something. And then that just kept on persisting. And I got it. I understood. I know what it's like. I struggled with social anxiety a lot throughout the majority of my adolescence. I wasn't always this person who'd be willing to come on stage. I was the person who stayed in the darkest corner of the room, either had a book in my hand, and just disappeared as quickly as I possibly could. And most of you guys know that. Most of you were here for that. And I hated it. It was terrible. I didn't want to be that way. I just wanted to be normal like everybody else. And so I went online to fix it. I took tangible steps in the right direction. I went into my discomfort zone. I talked to new people. I met strangers and became friends with them. And even that wasn't enough because I still felt it. I still felt it. And so I wanted to go the extra mile, and I literally did that. I went into the city and I interviewed complete strangers, and asked them deeply personal questions like, what is your idea of fulfillment? I was willing to do what scared me. And that's how I got over it. It was necessary. So when my wife told me that she just couldn't, when she'd say that she wants a better life, but she's clearly not willing to do anything necessary to get there, when she'd say that to me, no. She doesn't want a better life. She wants the perks of a better life. She wants the sense of calm, the contentment, the confidence. She wanted to shine. She saw the peak of the mountain. What she did not see was the mountain itself. I was willing to climb it, to put in every excruciating step it took to get there. And she said she wanted a better life. And she'd say to me, I'm not you. I'm not you. I can't do that. It's easier for you. It's not like, I know that the majority of people are capable of doing something. The thing is, however right I might have been, however justified I might have seemed, living my life with that mindset was corrosive. It did not nurture a sense of compassion, not toward my wife, not toward my family, not to my friends, and not even to myself. I realized that in my relationship, I was forcing my standards and expectations onto my wife and lying by saying that it was for her own sake, When in reality, I was just doing it mostly for me because I wanted to feel safer. I wanted to feel better. And if she's stuck in a state of anxiety, then it made our relationship not as ideal as I wanted it to be, which means that I wasn't as happy. You know, fix the origin of the problem, fix the relationship, fix me. Which wasn't how it was working at all. When I realized that what I was doing was just protecting myself, when I realized that it was just a defense mechanism, I wanted to understand it more. It's like with the surgeon in the tumor example. I didn't just want to have a broad area. I wanted to know exactly what the problem was. I wanted to know exactly how to fix it and to eradicate it so it didn't bother us anymore. It didn't stand in between us. And so I went back to biology and I discovered that the chemical responsible for the feelings that we typically ascribe to stress and anxiety is called cortisol. Cortisol is the first stage of fight or flight because all your senses highly attuned to look for danger. And the thing is, in order to get the energy necessary to keep you in that alert state, it shuts down all non-essential systems. Things like growth, your fingernails stop growing, your hair stops growing. It shuts down your immune system. Because when you're getting chased by a bear, you're not worried about catching the flu. You're worried about getting mauled to death. It inhibits the production of oxytocin. So you become less caring, less empathetic, less thoughtful of others. And you don't trust anybody because you don't feel safe. You stick out for number one because you feel like you have to. But when we live in environments where we don't feel safe, where we're always having to put on a facade rather than be ourselves, when you're always having to pretend, like put on the mask of the happy person or the sad person or the pleaser or the strong person, whatever it is that is not actually who you are, you're being criticized for anything else. You get little bits of cortisol dripping into your system. And this is what I was doing to Jimmy Rose. I was, all the criticisms, all the anger, she was already anxious. She was already stressed out, and me going to this person who already felt so small and just going, change, be something else. It was making her feel smaller. It was making everything worse. And when she feels worse, when she feels more anxiety, I get more stressed out. And when I'm more stressed out, then I stress her out, and it just becomes a terrible echo chamber of stress. And that doesn't last. It wasn't lasting. When we realized that the problem wasn't each other, the problem was the environment that we were setting for ourselves. We began to tackle it not as a me versus you situation, but rather as a situation where we're both trying to make us feel safe, to make us feel loved, like this person has my back. It's both of us being willing to pick each other up when we've fallen down. And eventually, after a while, not one day, not 2 days, not 3 days, it took more than 7 days, but less than 7 months. But after that, we were able to have that intense feeling, that intense desire, this knowledge that this person has my back no matter what, that I love this person and I know they love me. I'm not lying when I say that. And that I don't have to pretend anymore. That became the new standard. Take care of the people in your life, and they in turn will take care of you. That's just how we're designed. Thank you.
That was a performance. Like, I felt so much emotion in that.
That is where I'll go back.